And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power of Man podcast. My name is Rory Paquette, as you know, and I am, as always, your very humble and grateful host. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get going with our interview today, and you're going to love this guy. He interviewed me on his show previously, and you're just going to love him when you hear him. So stick around. But before we do that, I do want to say thank you to everybody for all of the well wishes and everything that you guys have sent in, all of the messages and so on, the support for not only my surgery and my recovery and the things we talked about lately on the podcast, but also in hopes that I will survive my son's wedding, which is coming up. And I'm not real sure I'm going to, but I'm going to try. I promise I'm going to try. So if I'm still here on Sunday, then you guys know that we made it through, and I managed to hit publish one final time. For those of you who have gone through weddings, there's nothing easier than being the father of the groom. But for some reason, my wife is still completely stressed out about it as the mother of the groom. And I think she thinks that she has a lot of things she has to do. But, for right now, all I have to do is show up on time, sit there, eat, and make a speech. So I'm good to go. All right. As we move forward, let me take a quick sip of my preferred beverage. Yeah, man, it's good stuff. Would not make it through the day without that. As you guys know, if you're a friend of the program, you know what we're drinking, and that is Freedom Hill Coffee. That's right. It's at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. You can find them there. They do all the right things for all the right reasons. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. You're going to love this cup of coffee, and you're going to love what they do and why they do it. They support veterans, and that's why we support them. So look them up. Tell them Power Man sent you, and we'll move on. One more sip before we talk to this wonderful guy. And we're on. All right. We are with today Alessandro Frosali, who is a purpose speaker for young men. He's a great guy. You're going to love his accent. You're going to love everything he has to say. And we are very like-minded on a lot of issues. So listen up. Alessandro, how you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on. I really appreciate it. You and I have had a lot to talk about. We had our pre-interview, and then of course you interviewed me a little while ago for your show, and
hmm
I'm grateful for that. This guy asked me some questions that made me question whether or not I should even be in podcasting. The way that he like dug deep, he hit some nerves that I was not even sure I was going to be able to come back from. So I hope that I can raise myself up to where you put that bar, my friend, because you really just killed it on that episode.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Well, hit me with your best shot. I got it.
All right, well, we're going to start with an easy one,
All
okay?
right.
Who are you? What do you do? Why
Mm,
are you here, my friend?
mm. I mean, to go with the theme of everything and a lot of what we're speaking about, I'm here because I have taken responsibility for my life and decided to take responsibility for my life and actually live the purpose that I'm here for. And by purpose, I mean the thing that I'm naturally good at, the thing I've been probably avoiding to face for most of my life. And now I'm turning around facing it and helping as many people as possible to do that. So what that is for me, when I was 18 years old, I had this moment in my life where I read a book by Dr. Wayne Dyer, and it was The Power of Intention. And I remember reading that book, and I called my mother and I said, I'm going to give up everything that I've ever been doing. I'm going to give up music. I'm going to give up acting. I'm going to give up all of that, and I'm going to become a motivational speaker. Either that or I'm going to move to India and become a monk. And I just felt this like there was almost like a spiritual calling after reading that book. And I was like, I had this, it was so clear to me. I'm here for that. I could see myself on a stage. I could see that. And in the past, I thought that was always because of music or acting or things that I'd been doing in that place. But I could see myself speaking. And I just knew in my heart that that's what I needed to do. But then, as soon as I started sharing that with other people, everyone else was like, well, who are you? You're 18 years old. What on earth's your story? Like,
This was when you were 18 that you had
mhm.
all this happen.
I
My
had all of
goodness.
that happen. And everyone was like, "Who are you? You have no story to tell. You've just been a slightly spoiled kid, essentially. A slightly spoiled kid. Like, what kind of stories could you tell anyone else?" And I let that get to me. And I genuinely went, well, if I can't tell my story, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to become a filmmaker. So I went to film school
Tell other
and
people's stories.
I told other people's stories. And so that was now, I'm turning 33 this year, coming up. So we're talking 15 years ago. And in that time, I got a film degree, went into filmmaking, made over 10,000 videos for myself and my clients, went into social media, started doing, yeah, just everything for social media and telling other people's stories and learning about other people's stories. But in the process, some very weird things happened. Well, first, there were a lot of views and things like that that started happening from that. As soon as you start making videos, you give yourself the opportunity to get seen, right?
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
I started getting seen for a bunch of things. And some of them, when I say weird, like there was a moment where I became a Indonesian pop star for accidentally singing a Indonesian song. And that went so viral that I was on Balinese TV. I was on all different things. And so that's a whole story in itself. But
Okay, I'm not going to
basically,
let that go.
yeah,
We're going to have
we'll
to come
get
back
there.
to that. Okay.
We'll come back to that. But essentially, like that all happened. But the moment that that sort of happened, then my father passed away. And he had insurance out on his name, and I got like a sizable bit of money deposited into my account. And at the same time, everybody on the streets was recognizing me for this Indonesian music thing. And everything that I kind of chased at that point, which was money and fame, happened in a second.
All right.
There I had it in my account.
First, let me say sorry for your loss. Okay, because I
Mhm.
know that's brutal. But um, yeah,
But
what do
what
you
I was
mean
going
by
to say
that?
that,
Yeah.
yeah, so everything that I'd been chasing was money and sort of fame in a way, especially in entertainment and this sort of space. But the thing that I realized at that point was that it meant nothing to me.
Really?
It meant nothing to me at that point because I'd lost my father.
Was
Because
that
I'd lost
just
my
in
father.
relativity? Because you realize how
Yeah,
important that is, and
yeah.
everything else became less important.
Everything else became less important.
Okay.
And so I think that was the moment that I realized that there's actually still something more, right?
Mhm.
So that's not the purpose that I'm here for. Right. That was one of those moments then. And then I continued on and certain things happened to me that were, not good and some things were great. Like I met my now wife, and she's an inspiration because she's just pushes me to be better every single day. And so there was a sense of responsibility, and also a sense of now that my father was gone, I was like, I need to step up as a man. So I'm dealing with all of that. And then my wife, having that and looking after, the starting of a family. And then I got to that just I was like, you know what, I'm going to start a business with this. I'm going to use all this attention that I've gotten for all of these other things. I'm going to start a business. And I started a business with NFTs
Mhm.
and started building my own NFT company. And I was like, this is the responsibility. This is me stepping up and becoming a man. This is me putting all of that money that I've got, I'm going to invest it. So I invested that. I put pretty much all my money in that and more, even the money I was supposed to spend on our wedding. I started having to go into that because I was losing all of this money with this business venture that I was doing and getting further and further into it and really trying to make it big and grand. And my ego was getting thrown into this as well.
Wow.
And
You used wedding
built
money.
yeah, I used wedding money because I had gotten myself so far into it. And, I was only supposed to invest like 50K, which I invested of my own. And I had investors of 50K, two other investors of 50K as well. But then we had about $30,000 set aside for the wedding. And I started using money from that because I needed more to keep this running. And we just had to keep pushing with it. But then
Now, did
it
she
came
know
to
about that? Was it a decision she made with you? I'm just curious.
that was a decision that she did not make with me. She
Okay.
made the decision with me for the investing, but as we started going more into it, it wasn't that we had like set aside. It was just more along the lines of I started using and encroaching in on the money that we had, and that
Right.
was the money we were set to set aside. And
Okay.
I think that was also another thing about myself. Like I really recognized I was quite a weak man, and I look at that and I hid that. I didn't face it. I swept everything under the rug. Everything was given to me so easily, right? And then we came to launch, the day of launch of this project. And on the moment I said launch, we got hacked. The hackers came in, blocked me and everyone else out of like all the things, and essentially took all of our customers' money. They basically spammed different links, and our customers paid like the hackers' money. And then I'm telling them, get off, don't do this. And genuinely one of the worst nights of my life. And the project was gone. All the credibility, the 15,000 followers, the everything that we built up was gone in a second. All of the money, like 60,000 bucks of my own money, which was all the leftover money that, I'd gotten from my father passing away,
Right.
and all my credibility as well. And so I hear what you meant when we spoke earlier. You were talking about that low moment. Like I felt demoralized, and then I had to hit with the face of, I've also betrayed my wife in this sort of sense by going into and spending our wedding money,
Which you also lost with all this other
which
stuff.
I also lost.
Yeah. You said
So
that
yeah.
you found out you were a weak man and that's what led
Mhm.
to this.
Mhm.
What did you mean by that?
I meant that I I didn't have any sense of responsibility, any sense of responsibility. And, I feel like I had to create that. I was still a boy in a weird way, like and I built that up after that, like I quite literally then I started using my skills for social media and content, and I built an agency, and then we got quite successful with that. And I was able to build that up, and we had the wedding the next year. It was fantastic, and all of that. But I think to end my story in terms of where I'm getting now with what I do is, after all of this and then going into social media and social media content, teaching and all of that, there was a certain moment where I realized that I hated social media, and I really knew in my heart that I needed to do something else, and that can't, I can't keep doing something that I don't want to do here, because I don't believe in social media as much. I believe in purpose and expertise. I believe in helping men, because there are so many men in this world that don't feel, that feel alone, that don't feel like they're aligned with their purpose, that feel this disconnect with who they are. And then it hit me. You already know what to do, Alessandro. You knew what to do 15 years ago when you were 18, and now you've got stories.
So now the
And
imposter syndrome's gone and you have some credibility
yeah.
of your own.
Yeah, and even if I don't have credibility, I also think there's a line that you said earlier on the previous podcast. We got to listen to both these podcasts. It might be like a part one and a part two.
Yeah, please do.
Um,
Please do listen to both of
but there was something you said about leading, and you said that we lead not just by, speaking, making the decisions and telling people what to do. And I genuinely believe that it's not about me in this position telling people how to live their purpose, but it's by living my purpose, showing people that there is a way of living a purposeful life, and actually building community, bringing people together, and actually, moving forward. That's how you lead. And straight away, I started the Mallorca Men's Club here, which is a group where men come together to talk about male philosophy, fitness, and business, and having that space to actually grow.
and I love all of that. That's great. I think more men need to do that because it's so sorely needed in our space, especially.
Mhm.
Um, now you, I love your story.
I gave you a lot
Um,
of strings to pull on, huh?
right. And so, which is another joke from a little line from our first podcast. But there's a lot to unpack right there.
Mhm.
The um, the first step in terms of you feeling like you were a weak man to start with
Mm.
is that, do you suppose, from growing up? What do you suppose leads to that moment where you are faced with having to say, I'm a weak man and confront that.
Well, I feel like I'm doing a lot of ideas and thinking about this, and as woo-woo as it sounds, there is a real need for us to look at masculine and feminine energy. Masculine and feminine energy is really big, and I think I was very feminine, very submissive. And I have a wife who desperately wants to be feminine, and I desperately want to be masculine. And the more I started looking into that, like even reading David Data's The Way of the Superior Man or Robert Glover's No More Mr. Nice Guy, when I started looking into it, I was like, a lot of this just probably comes from emotionally unavailable mother who I tried to get some approval from, a father who was only there until I was 6 years old because he stayed behind in South Africa and I moved to Australia. And, just this, I had such a feminine energy that I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't go and do my own purpose. I gave up on that to follow other and tell other people's stories and always live a sort of half life of actually wanting to do the thing that I want to do and always flirting with actually being in my potential. And I think all of those things, as harsh as it sounds, I think all of those things are weak, especially in a man who wants more. Now,
Right.
it's okay to choose it. If you choose to be feminine, if you choose to have feminine traits and everything like that, that's fine. I'm not against anyone choosing femininity, but I desperately don't want that. My core wants masculinity. My core wants purpose. My core wants to be seen and has these desires. And I think it is weak. The precise thing that is weak is to step away from that and not face it.
Nice. We talked about that before too, about having to face, what's going on with you. That's a realization that a lot of men can't get to say, I'm weak in this, even in this area. I'm weak here or I'm weak there, because
Mhm.
simply to admit that you're weak in some capacity is, to admit this utter failure and rejection, of yourself.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I hope that you're giving yourself some grace and, a little pat on the back for the fact that you were actually able to do that to move forward.
Well, I mean, sure, I'm happy to do that. But the thing is, you're 100% right. That is the thing. It's just the decision. And that takes the most strength.
Right. Absolutely.
The ironic thing is, if you do that, if you admit that you are weak, you have the strength to move forward. I look at my grandfather. My grandfather is it's a very interesting thing because I recently did my first keynote, which was what makes a good role model. And I looked at my father and I looked at my grandfather, and both of them to me, I realized that they weren't actually that great role models. But my grandfather specifically, he's what I would call a tough man. He was born in Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe, and he was in the Rhodesian army. And everything about his life is always, I could have had this or could have been the best Formula One driver if it wasn't for meeting your grandmother. I would have been the best mechanic if I didn't have the kids. If this didn't happen to me, I would have been this. There's so much blame and so much, I know everything and I know this and I know this and I know this. And I realized recently, all of that's just to mask the fact. It's just hiding the fact that he probably just didn't have a purpose and he never wanted to admit it.
You don't have to face any of those things when you have an excuse that's
You
that
don't have to
strong.
face it.
So,
Yeah. And so
uh,
Mr. Tough Guy was
no,
really the only way that he would have ever changed that is if he actually just stopped and went, "Oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing." Sorry for swearing. I didn't mean, I don't know
you're
if you're,
fine. Oh, you're fine.
yeah.
On this
He,
show, you're okay.
okay, cool. So shit, I don't know what I'm doing. And I honestly believe that if he would have done that, he would have found a way through and he would have also been a really good role model. He really would have been. But as such, I really just don't connect with this um yeah, not looking at self. You have to look at self.
That's a newer thing for most men, and frankly, it's revolutionary in a lot of men that I deal with. I'm sure you've come in contact with the same thing. I'm curious, I can see, and anyone who's listening to this can see how you've brought yourself through this and brought yourself to where you're looking at what is your purpose. I asked you, how should I introduce you? Right? Because that's something that all podcasters ask somebody. You
Mhm.
were very specific in saying that you're a purpose speaker for young men.
Mhm.
So tell me about why talking to young men, is not only your focus, but is so important. I think I have an idea hearing your story now, but
Mm.
go ahead.
There's not enough good role models. And this is one thing that I'm not going to claim to be an expert on, but I am going to claim to care. And I'm going to claim to know that that change within myself is a change that, oh, it's monumental and it's made me just exceedingly happy and exceedingly who I am meant to be. And that change is not about, oh, like how I had a lot of stigma in my own head about like coach becoming a coach for coaches, this kind of, as soon as you get down the rabbit hole of somebody like saying, oh, I found my purpose and my purpose is to help you find your purpose. And then like, and then you talk to the person who's trying to help who you're helping, your client or whatever. And they're like, okay, great. I'm going to be somebody that helps other people find their purpose. And it gets down this. It's not about that for me. I know my purpose. Yes, it's in the mentor, teaching, speaking kind of role. I know that's that, but I have always had an ability and a love of bringing out something that makes your eyes light up. In anyone that I meet, when I see them and their eyes are like they haven't got that twinkle, right? And I know that there's something wrong. I will always dig until I find the point where they go, "Oh, I kind of wish I'd written my book." And then I will pull on it and bring it out as much as possible. I care about that. And I've always seen that, I call bullshit on so many different things because I really care about people doing what they need to be doing. Now, I say specifically young men because I have been a young man, and that's one thing I know and I've experienced. And that's one thing I don't think we have enough role models on. And I say purpose because purpose is, for me, the core of everything.
Love
It is
that.
the core of everything.
Love
And I
that.
say a speaker finally because it will lead into coaching, it will lead into mentorship, and it will lead into all of these other things. But speaking is the heart of it. That is where my voice has always been my tool, and I've also intentionally put away the word motivation because motivation is fuel, but I think purpose is the kindling, the wood, and the things needed to make the fire.
I like that. That's wow, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. The as you talk about purpose, um, I love your story. Let me back up for a minute. I love your story because I love talking to people who are authentic with what they're doing, and you've been very cognizant from the very beginning about not trying to be something you're not. When you're 18, you can't talk to 30 and 40-year-old fathers about being a father or being a husband. You
Hmm.
haven't been that yet.
Hmm.
I do the same thing on my show. I'm 54 years old as we sit here today. I have, I've been divorced once. I have three kids that have all, been raised and all grown, empty nest, the whole bit. I can speak to those things because I've been through them. And so when people hear me talk about it, I'm not just talking conjecture. I'm talking about, what's actually going on. So I love the fact that you're within yourself, okay, and that you're focusing on what you know, and you're helping people do what you did, which was go through, focus on your purpose, build your life around it. As you do that with young men, especially in today's world, which is not easy in a world where you're encouraged to not have any purpose, how do you go about explaining the importance of finding their purpose and constructing their lives towards that?
The interesting thing is, I don't look at it as a difficult task at all because purpose, I believe, is such a fundamental, like it's an underlying current within all of us, right? And it is something that we're all seeking and striving for. The mere fact of talking about it, people will align with it and they go, "Oh, that's the thing that I've been missing," right? That's all you have to do. You literally have to be a catalyst for that. The thing that goes, you have permission. And maybe that's the thing, is not even my role is not here to really educate or tell you about purpose is maybe even just to give people permission for purpose. Because as you said, if we do have a society that doesn't encourage purpose, well, we need role models that encourage the opposite and give
So,
permission.
yeah, so it's your thought that, and I like it, it's your thought that we all want purpose, we all need purpose, but we maybe just
Mm.
don't really understand that that's what we're missing.
Yeah, and look, there's nuances to it too. I feel like it also we need to strip away some things first. We need to strip away all of the new societal stuff. We need to strip away the people do need to come into their masculine energy, especially young men need to come into their masculine energy to do that. So they do have to face some things. They do have to find community. Community is huge. They do have to, yeah, find healthy community. One of the things that I didn't really tell in my story is one of my clients who I've actually helped out for the last, been working with them for maybe 15 months now. They came to my previous social media agency with 4,000 followers, and we've brought them up to 24,000 followers, and yeah, I've done a bunch of things with them. They're called the Rites of Passage Institute. And the leader of that is a guy named Dr. Arne Rubinstein. And he has dedicated his life to helping young men transition from boys to adults. And how he does that is he takes knowledge from rites of passage from ancient tribes and civilizations, gets fathers and their sons or mentors and their sons to go out into the bush for 5 days and they have a camp and they go through the process of a rite of passage. They go through the process of the fathers and mentors telling their stories, not telling them what to do, tell their stories and how they got there. So, story. Then they go through the process of challenge. So, giving the boys a challenge to really become a man. And then they go through the process of honoring and finding your unique gifts and talents so that you can bring that to the community. Now, these are the things that I do believe are really important as well. So, yes, purpose is there. Purpose is part of that. Purpose is the undercurrent, I feel. But there are loads of layers that we need to strip away in order to get to purpose. And I feel like that comes from masculine energy. It comes from health. It comes from rites of passage. And it comes from, yeah, community.
This rites of passage group, is this something that you are working with then in terms of what you
Yeah.
do, or is that where you're taking your cue from?
I took a big cue from that. It's really hard for me to edit videos all day on of the main guy Anna, and he's on stages, and I'm looking and I'm like, I kind of want to do that. Like, wait, I want to do that, and then there were certain times where it just clicked for me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love what they're doing. So I'm gonna do my first leadership camp with them next year in Australia.
That's
So I'm
great.
really looking forward to that and going down that route. But it's so fun because I've literally edited maybe 500 hours of their stuff. So like it's like I feel like I know it in my bones as well.
It's not every day that you run into a social media expert who doesn't like social media. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you're quite the
Yeah.
conundrum.
Well, that's why I had to get out of it. Like
Right.
for me, I found myself seeing that all these mentees that I would work with, like I'd have somebody come to me and go, okay, I need my social medias up. I need to get leads in. I need to get contacts in. And they'd send me over, let's say something like $5,000, and I'd coach them for 6 months. And the thing that they'd want is they'd be like, okay, teach me about editing, teach me about captions, teach me about sound design, teach me about camera. And the first thing that I would do is be like, well, none of that's the stuff that works. The stuff that works is expertise and purpose. So
Mhm.
I would take them back and start coaching them on expertise and purpose. And then we'd get to the wrapping, the outer layer at the end. But for me, social media provides anxiety because a lot of the people who come to it are coming to it to find their expertise and purpose. They're not coming to it with expertise and purpose.
Wow.
And that is a huge thing because then we start comparing. Then we start judging ourselves based on other people. Then we start living a life which is actually not what we want because we see, oh, I could do that, but that is misalignment. And misalignment hurts within us. It's not the right thing. And there's nothing worse than having someone pay you 5,000 bucks. And I got to the core of the fact that they're actually paid me that money on something that's not going to help them. It's going to get them further and worse in their life because what they really needed was somebody first to help them with their purpose and expertise. And then
Yeah.
they can
Wow.
come to it. Right.
Yeah. I coach podcasting and I run into the same thing. One of the first questions I ask is, what's your purpose for talking to me? What is it you want to do? And that's the biggest question we end up going through. And at the
Yeah.
beginning of it, it might be, oh, I want to monetize it. And at the end of it, it might be, well, I don't really want to monetize this. I want this to play with that and connect to that and end up monetizing over here. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, well, glad we got to that. So, purpose is not something that's that easy for people to find. And like I said before, a lot of people don't even know they need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
They think that they'll find it, through the act. And it's got to be the other way around. It's got to be the other way around.
well, listen, I know that you have a very tight schedule, and you let me know that ahead of time. I appreciate you fitting us in. I wanted to make sure we at least introduced you on this podcast and got you going. But honestly, I have like 50 more questions I could ask you. I'd love to have you back on and go more into,
Yeah.
these types of things if you'd be open to that.
I'd be open to that.
I would also love to have you on our other podcast, The Podcaster Nation, to talk about your purpose and your podcasting and what you do there. If you'd be open to that, I'd love to set you up for that too.
We're in. Rory, I think we've got a good collaboration going on. We'll chat a few more times.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you for that. I wanted to say that on the air so I could lock you in, people hearing you say yes. So,
Yeah,
all
just
right. That's beautiful. Listen, I know you got to go. I want to thank you for all of your time. You want to give one parting shot out before we end?
yeah. Um, if you feel, hearing me talk about purpose and you feel that there's like something you're not facing or something that, is not right with what you're doing in life, I know it's tough. It's probably the toughest thing that you will do to face that question. But the sooner you do it, the sooner you are free.
Wonderful. Great words to part on. And we will definitely be talking some more. Alessandro Frosali, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate you being here.
I really appreciate it too.
All right, folks, you have heard another episode of The Power of Man. We're going to talk about this more. We're going to talk about this topic a whole lot more. As for right now, I just want you guys to remember the reason that we do this is because you're worth it. And at some point, you just got to believe it. Until next time.